prisons can be incredibly dangerous and scary places. But it's not so much to do with the prisons itself, it's to do with who's inside them. Well, recently on the website Reddit, ex-prisoners were asked what's the worst thing they've seen inside prison. And some of the responses are totally terrifying. I'm Charlie, and today we're going to look at inmates reveal the worst things they've seen inside prison. But before we get into it, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too. Coming up first, we have Fred West. One Reddit user disclosed that they were once incarcerated in Winston Green Prison in Birmingham, UK. Inside, another inmate was Fred West. But what was strange was how the prison officers got on so well with him. You may think, what's so strange about this? Fred West simply would joke around and the officers would laugh. But the scary thing is what Fred West did. Fred West treated his own daughter terribly. He would do things I can't even say to her. And he also buried his own daughter in concrete. Fred West also tried to injure another girl, but she punched him, causing him to fall 2 floors down a set of stairs. But the prisoner says the disturbing thing was how jovial he was and how the officers treated him like a friend. I suppose behind bars a sense of closeness is inevitable, but it's still very creepy and unsettling. Next up is Pirate. This one is actually a story from a juvenile prison, but it's one of the most chilling stories from behind bars you'll ever hear. One Reddit user was incarcerated inside a juvenile prison. One day at the prison there was a new kid who was very shy and quiet, and unfortunately he was put in a cell with one of the scariest inmates at this juvenile prison. On the second night he was there, his cellmate unscrewed a screw from the bench they slept on. He then sat on the new quiet kid's bed in the middle of the night, and when the new kid woke up, the most dangerous inmate said, "I'ma make you a pirate." He then shoved the screw into the new kid's eye. When the kid was asked why he did this, he said the new kid looked at him the wrong way. I'm not sure whether he really did get an eye patch to look like a pirate, but that is a terrible story. Even though the quiet kid must have done a crime to get in there, still, this is terrible under any circumstance. Next up is electric chair. One prison inmate said the worst thing he saw was someone being electrocuted behind bars. Very few countries in the world have the death penalty, but one of them is the United States, where it happens in 29 different states. However, only 5 still use the electric chair. These states are Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. One prisoner actually saw another prisoner be electrocuted. The prisoner's eyes were first taped closed, and the prisoner is often given a diaper in case they have a bodily function. It's supposed to be instantaneous, but some prisoners have been known to scream, and this is what happened in this situation. Sometimes prisoners' heads can even burst into flames, although this is rare. And any burnt off skin must be scraped off the electric chair before it can be used again. Yeah, it's easy to see why this is the worst thing an inmate has seen behind bars. But it's pretty uncommon that these are used, which is why barely any inmates ever get to see it. Next up is Scariest 9-year-old. So this one comes from an ex-guard who used to work at a juvenile detention facility in New Mexico, USA. He said the scariest thing he ever saw was a young boy, 9 years old, enter the center. He was then booked in for taking the life of both of his parents. He said the child didn't even seem human, almost like a monster. The guard said he felt total fear when he looked into the child's eyes. He also said the child was very different to most juvenile inmates. He never broke any rules and always followed all commandments. He also never spoke unless someone spoke to him first. Later on, he was transferred to a mental facility, but the ex-guard said he'll never forget the kid's eyes and it haunts him to this day. Next up is James Holmes. This one isn't scary in the traditional sense, but it is very uncomfortable. One ex-inmate said they once saw James Holmes come into their prison. He's the man who took 12 lives at a cinema in Aurora, Colorado, USA. This happened in 2012 during a midnight screening of the film The Dark Knight Rises. He took the lives of 12 people and injured 70. He said he'd seen the man's face on the news and on TV, but seeing his face in reality was very strange. He said he had no idea what to expect, but it was very disturbing simply to see him in the flesh. Next up is Easter Surprise. One former inmate said one thing a prisoner in his cell block would do is called Easter Surprise. That is, on Easter morning, he would take off all of his clothing. He would then wave a toilet brush around, hopping around trying to avoid the oncoming guards. This was basically a way to really annoy the guards and to ruin their Easter. And if you're thinking that's random and crazy, that's because the people behind bars often are. Next up, we have concrete squash. One ex-convict said he once went into prison for a short while. He was supposed to get given his paperwork saying his charges before he got to prison, but he didn't. This made the other prisoners very suspicious and thought he may be a snitch. All of the other prisoners said they were going to get him, but a friend of this guy was also in prison and he said he had nothing to worry about. But that night, while the guy was making his bed, a few prisoners ran into his friend's cell. They then bounced the guy's head off the concrete, like they were playing concrete squash. We all know squash is the game where you bounce a ball off a wall. Well, that's exactly what they were doing to this guy's head. The person who told this story on Reddit said they could even hear it and were terrified. And that was actually the moment that scared him straight, and he never committed another crime again. Something tells me that wouldn't make it into the TV show though. And finally on the list, we have Detox. Did you know that 60% of serious crimes are committed while the person is drunk? That's one of the reasons why if you go to prison, a lot of the people will have a problem with alcohol. Well, one day a former inmate said that they saw a guy detoxing from alcohol. But as this was happening in prison, the person passed away. Alcohol is actually the most dangerous substance to detox from. But the guy said it was a terrible thing to witness in his own cell. The person slowly went totally insane mentally and emotionally. And then they simply closed their eyes and never woke back up. If that doesn't haunt you for the rest of your days, I don't know what will. But now it's time to make your voice heard. Have you ever been to prison or jail? Vote in the poll in the top right corner. If you want some more amazing videos, check out my second channel. But as always, thanks for watching. There's some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.